A missed call was the difference maker between a Predators win and a loss, and a larger gap is forming between the Predators and the final wildcard spot.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Locked On Predators podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. Thank you for making us your first stop of the day. We are your free daily Nashville Predators podcast. I want to start off by shouting out all of our Locked On Predators podcast community and our everydayers tuning in to chat all things Preds every day. My name is Jack Williams, and I am the host of the Locked On Predators podcast and the Nashville Predators beat writer for the Hockey News. Before we get into it, I want to talk about our mailbag again. If you guys have a question for me or just a question about the Predators, question about what I like to eat or what's my favorite food or what's so not, send it to our Locked On Predators mailbag. You can find that in a Google form in the episode description below. Now, interesting day today. I'm not going to lie with y'all. It is currently 1:30 right now as I'm filming this, and I'm probably going to be shorter with this one because I have been working since 11 in the morning, from the Predators game to covering high school hockey and then driving home and then writing and now doing this. So I am very tired, but I will give you as much energy as I have left in the tank. But this might be a little bit more of a shorter episode just because I'm exhausted, but we'll see the energy that I bring out here as well. And talking about this game, because there's a lot of energy and emotion to put into it too. Final that happened on Monday afternoon, the matinee game. That was the Red Wings 4, the Nashville Predators 2. But the big point to talk about this game was Albert Johansson's shorthanded goal in the second period, which I don't know. I just don't know if this is a non-reviewable call. I don't know if the Predators didn't want to challenge it or what, but this clearly was something that shouldn't have been allowed. This was a goal that should have been called back completely, and it was missed like a strike. You swung and missed on that completely. It was an absolutely blind missed call by the refs. So what had happened in this situation was it happened along the left boards in the Predator zone. They were actually on a power play in the moment in the second period. The puck came up to Roman Josi along the boards, and Marco Kasper tripped up Roman Josi in the process of trying to get the puck off him along the boards and steal the puck away from him. And, you could talk about, I'm like, oh, well, Josi might have been off balance in the moment, and the stick just happened to be there at the right time, and it looks like a trip. But you look at photos and you look at the replay, and clearly Kasper's stick played a role into knocking Josi on the ice. There was no trip call made once this happened. There was no stoppage in play. And credit to Kasper, he continued to play through it. He ended up getting the possession back and started a 2-on-1 with Johansson. With Stamkos caught as the defenseman in this situation. So he's out of position. You have two guys coming at you in this too. And Kasper made a cross-eye pass to Johansson to the left side, and that was put in for a goal. Now, this was not reviewed. There was no pause in trying to figure out what had happened. It was just immediately a goal, and went back to the face-off circle again. And I just don't understand if this is just a non-reviewable call. Do the Predators not want to challenge? Or I don't know. The questions that were asked after the game were just not in depth about what was happening. And Brunette, he's gotten to a point where it seems like he's very tired in the year and just is. I think the whole belief thing that he had, the whole Ted Lasso thing he had going at the beginning of the year, is starting to die down now because he just seems exhausted at this point. And there were questions about the no call asked, and the way he was like, was the game was not lost off of that. The game was lost by our play in the second period. But Roman Josi was asked about this, and Roman Josi is probably the most well-spoken guy on the Predators roster. And he said, I thought it was a trip. I fell pretty hard, but stuff like that happens out there. I certainly make a lot of mistakes out there. That's not why we lost the game. We had a lot of other things that we could do better, and we had our looks in the third. And he's right. I mean, it's been a trend lately where, I mean, like any team in the NHL is trying to play a perfect 60 minutes. And Steven Stamkos, I think he either said it after the last game against the Stars or he said it against the Red Wings. He said it against the Stars because we didn't talk to him today, where he said, every team's going to strive to play a perfect 60 minutes. He's like, it's kind of impossible, but you can do your best you can to play a more complete game. And what we've been seeing from the Predators lately is they just fall asleep mainly. And it's happened a lot in the middle of the game. That's kind of what happened in the second period. This team just stopped pushing in the second period. We saw Detroit really come into it a little bit more, and the chances were there. The looks were there in the third, as Roman Josi said. But I mean, it was another thing where the Preds just got lackadaisical with it. And I don't know what you expect to happen when you're playing some of these teams that are hungry and trying to fight and to get into the playoff spots, or teams that are already in playoff spots, teams that are good. I don't know what you expect to happen when you take your foot off the gas and not expect them to just take off, because that's what the Red Wings did. And again, credit to Kasper for playing through the call, or the missed call, I should say, and being like, well, I didn't get whistled down. I didn't hear a whistle. I didn't hear no whistle. I didn't hear no bell, and just kept going and sprung the 2-on-1, and they paid for it. And, you could say it was bad officiating, but at the end of the day, it stood. And that's the unfortunate part of it. And it was a complete missed call. And it's good on the Predators' part that they're not taking this as the decider to the game and saying, yo, we played bad the entire second period, and this was just a part of it. But I mean, there was still some displeasure with it too. Like I said, Brunette said he didn't think it's not an excuse. They played bad the entire second period, and that was the reason why they lost. And then Luke Evangelista, God bless his heart, he's a younger guy. He's like, I don't know what I can say that doesn't get me in trouble, but clearly we thought it was a tripping call. So he wasn't really wanting to entertain the idea of being all up in arms about it completely. That makes sense. You don't want to get yourself in trouble, but it was a shared sentiment along the teams that seems like, yes, it was unfortunate. Yes, it should have been a call. And we all thought it was a call, but this is not where the game was won and lost. It was clearly lost in the second period. And it was a weird officiating game too. There were 2 disallowed goaltender interference goals in the first period, or at least the first 30 minutes of the game. The first one was on Michael McCarron, who he tipped a shot. I can't remember the original shot came from, but he tipped it and it went in 5-hole on Gibson, I believe was the goaltender today. And it was disallowed because of the contact from Michael Bunting. And I was kind of like 50-50 on the whole thing of whether or not it should have been called goaltender interference. And someone brought up a point. I was like, all right, whatever. But he was kind of sandwiched between the goalie and the defender. The defender was shoving him into the goalie. And the issue where Bunting slipped up was he just had his hands up in the air like this and being like, I'm not going to interfere with the goalie. Well, the incentive is that allowed the call to stand was Bunting apparently was just not making an effort to get out of the way, and just standing there with your hands up. Excuse me. Is just not, it qualifies as goaltender interference because he's not making an effort to get out of the way. So that stood. And then Kasper, who just, thank God that the Predators and Red Wings are playing again this year, because that would just be a brawl. And it was heating up a lot in this game too. There was a lot of pushing and shoving in this game. There were a few scrums. Bunting really got into it earlier, but Kasper in this game kind of sideswiped Saros on the other goal, and it was clearly goaltender interference. But we saw 2 goals disallowed due to goaltender interference. But looking at the summary of this game, Finney scored the first goal on the rebound for Detroit, and it became 1-0. Then Philip Forsberg scored for Nashville, and that tied it up 1-1. Then Marshall scored on a cross ice feed from Ryan O'Reilly to make it 2-1. Raymond scored on a cross ice feed from Alex DeBrincat. That made it 2-2. Johansson scored the game-winning goal to make it 3-2, and then Alex DeBrincat added a empty net goal in the final minutes for the Red Wings to get out of Nashville with a 4-2 win. So I think the general takeaway from this is just it's more of the same thing, and I'll mention it in the next segment, but it's more of the same thing of where the Predators are doing the same stuff we see over and over and over again, and it's just not getting fixed. And now, especially when you need any points that you can get coming your way at all, you have to find a way to get through this, because if you're not, you could just talk up that you're out of the playoff picture at this point, and you're not making the playoffs. If you're making the same mistakes night in and night out, and trying to fix them, of course, but you're seeing the same things over and over again. Every team's going to know how to beat you, and you're going to be predictable. And that is the last thing that you want to be in this league, other than predictably good, I guess, or predictably a winner, or predictably a champion. If you have a style that you play, and if you're going up against the Nashville Predators and knowing that, okay, this team's going to hop off the gas in the second period, let's just pour it on there. And they'll have a little bit of a push in the third period and make it close. But at the end of the day, we'll have enough goals. We would have done enough in the midpoint of the game to separate ourselves and get a win. And that's predictable. So this team's becoming predictable now. That's another word that we can throw into the word cloud of what this team has become late in the season. But yep, that was the 4-2 matinee game. I guess I'll talk about my opinions on the matinee game. Maybe I'll leave them right here instead of doing the end. This was probably the worst idea in terms of infrastructure that the Predators have ever had, in putting a 1 p.m. game in the middle of the day on Monday. And I know there's people on Twitter that were all over me and calling me dumb, essentially, for what I was doing. But I spent an hour looking for parking because the Music City garage was closed. The other garage the other surface lot that I paid too much money for when I can't get into Music City was full. And that lot is like, the spaces are like inches away from, the parking situation is just not good there. It's very, very tight. And then I booked a spot somewhere, and that lot was full. And finally, I should have just gone to the Symphony Center, and I drove over there, and I finally found parking for $40. That took me an hour. And my whole complaint about this, and I won't make this too long, and I'm interested to see if y'all feel the same way just about the infrastructure in the city, because it's awful. It truly is awful. The city does not have the infrastructure to support specific. It needs to understand when the parking situation is getting overwhelmed, because today was absolutely ridiculous, because you don't just have people coming in to watch a game and saying, "Ooh, it's a middle of the day game, there must be more parking." No, you have all the regular tourists there. You have whatever the world is going on at Music City. And then you have all these spots that are taken by all the people that work down there. So you have very limited parking available for all these fans that want to come in and watch a Predators game. There are people parking over at the art museum. I have not seen that before. And maybe that's a secret, but when you put it into your mind, like, when you're coming around like downtown and Broadway and all that fun stuff at night, all these spots are available because the people who are working 9 to 5 aren't there. When you're combining a crowd of people that's usually there at night and around that time at night to come watch games versus the crowd that's there during the day, there's going to be limited infrastructure available, and there's going to be traffic everywhere. There's going to be nowhere to park. And this was just the perfect storm that was waiting to happen. And this was just a poor idea. I don't know. I don't know the solution to this. I don't know where in the world you build more parking. I've complained till the cows come home about expanding transportation in the city, public transportation, but this was just not good. And I know we're here to talk about the Predators, but this was a part of the game day experience. And there are some game days specifically with this team. I've had easier luck when I worked in Vegas getting into that garage any time of the day, any time of the week, any day of the week. I had no issue getting to Vegas games, and traffic is not great there. Right off the strip, that's not good. I've had easier time getting there versus these games. The traffic here is just ridiculous, and I'm guessing y'all completely share the same sentiment. And it must be like, oh yeah, this is a newbie talking about it because he's only been here for like a little under a year. But I mean, it's aggravating. And you know what? I'm going to leave it at that because I've talked enough about the traffic in Nashville, and we're here to talk about the Preds right now. So when we come back, we'll talk about the bubble, a little bit more on bubble watch. There was some movement, unfortunately not in the Predators' favor, but we'll review that and how that impacts the Preds. That's coming up right after the break. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, is a perfect job for sponsored jobs. Indeed, sponsored jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for: skills, experience, location. So you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners of the show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. So the bubble talk, and I know people were like, oh, and I said this out loud at the game, and I kind of heard myself say it. And I'm like, this sounds kind of crazy and it doesn't make sense. But it's happening slowly. And if they continue to lose, you can kind of chalk it up. This is the time of the year where if teams continue to lose badly, you can just start seeing the E's go next to each team, which means eliminated. And the Predators are still close within playoff range completely, but that gap widened even more. Previous to today, the playoff gap for what the Predators needed to meet was 3 points. It's now 4 points. And if they lose tomorrow, that can widen up to as many as 6 if one of those other teams picks up another win. So what had happened on what's today? Monday. What had happened on Monday night was there were 2 people ahead of the Predators that they needed results from and needed them to lose specifically in order for everything to stay the same. And that's not really a bad draw when you talk about all the teams that are behind you, in front of you, and just needing 2 to lose, especially when we're talking about the opponent that's in front, that each of these teams were playing, it's not a bad draw at all. It's actually a pretty good situation, and unfortunately just did go the Preds' way. The Avalanche played LA in LA. LA is currently tied with the Predators with points. Kings lost, so that's good on their part. And then the Kraken played the Hurricanes, and that's the team that the Predators are chasing. That was a 3-point gap. And the Kraken won that game. I think that was a 2-1 score I just had pulled up. If y'all really care. Yeah, it was 2-1, which is surprising just because it was kind of a mismatch considering how good Carolina is. But that puts Seattle into the 3rd spot in the Pacific. And then that puts Utah and Edmonton at 66 points. Utah is still in the Utah is at 67 points. No. Seattle's at 67 points. Utah and Edmonton are both at 66 points. Utah is at wild card 1. Edmonton is at wild card 2. We look at it in the situation of the Preds. They're 4 points behind. What's 4 points? That's 2 wins that they are behind now. That has been the max of the gap they have been sitting at over the past 2 months in this wild card chase. And they have not been able to close it this entire time. And I'm kind of getting to a point where I'm like, it doesn't seem like this team is going to make the playoffs because they cannot close this gap for the life of them. Like, it's something they've been chasing this for 2 months now. And it seems like they come up to it and they just can't do it. And I don't mean to be like negative or a pessimist or something like that, but I'm just following the trends and the patterns of what I've been seeing so far. And it just doesn't look like this team's going to do it. I'll be so real with y'all. They're going to try. They can darn tootin' try to close this gap as much as they can, but it just does not look like it's going to happen. These teams in front of them have just one more win than they do. It's that I think that's just the unfortunate circumstance of it. That's just they have one more win every situation than the Predators do, and that gives them that extra boost here and there. And the Predators, they can't string enough wins together. They are missing out on a point here and there, and it's little details here that is just limiting them at the end of the game, at the end of the day. And I said too earlier that Andrew Brunette just sounds tired. I mean, the tone he spoke with after the press conference against Detroit was a little concerning, not gonna lie, because we hadn't heard that from him this year, where even in all these losses, he's been, well, I really liked our game. There was good things coming out of this. It was really positive. And he had a really short press conference. I think it had to be less than 3 minutes, maybe even less than 2 minutes today against the Red Wings. And he sounded just tired. And that might be the situation with him right now where he's just tired. I mean, he's doing as much as he can to try to wield this team forward and what's so not. But he said the whole thing. I think it was asked about like, oh, well, you've mentioned you've been seeing similar problems. Is there like an individual or a group of guys that are doing the same thing? And he just said, we're a team. I'm just seeing the same issues over and over again. It just sounded like an exhausted answer, and I can't blame him. I cannot blame him. It's been an exhausting season. It's been an exhausting stretch for them as they keep coming up to this and they can't get over it. It's hard to celebrate a lot of that with everything going on too. But in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, it doesn't need to be correct. And, it's just an opinion. But the playoff window is very much getting close to closing for them. That like I said before, this team does not look like they're going to make the playoffs. They need to bounce back quick. I don't know. I can't say this over and over and over again. They need to win against Columbus. They need to win out the week. They need to win the week. That's what Jonathan Marchessault said about winning the week. That's been their whole thing. But I mean, they're having lulls in their game. They're not playing consistent hockey. It's just they don't look like they're going to make the playoffs. This doesn't look like a playoff team right now. And they're, like I said, they're going to try, but it just doesn't look like it's there. I hate to be the pessimist. I hate to be the rain on y'all's parade, but I just, after 2 months and now we're going into March and then we're coming up the trade deadline too, and they're likely not going to do too much at the trade deadline as much as some people on Twitter want to say they will. It doesn't. It looks like they've kind of hit a wall right now. So we'll see what happens. I could be very wrong, and they could go on a run here, and they could make the playoffs. But as of now, as of March 3rd at 1:45 a.m., if you guys are watching the video, I don't know what the dog is doing behind me, so I apologize for that. But I don't know. We'll see what the run they go on. It will be interesting to see what they do if they can clean something up and be a different team than what we've seen over the past 2 months, because we haven't seen much of a change, honestly. But before we get into the final ad break in the final segment, I want to talk to you guys about the Everydayer Club. Thank you for making Locked on Predators your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked on the #1 sports podcast network. You already live your team every day. Now take it up a level and go ad-free. Get Locked on Predators, no interruptions, members only Discord access, and more, all for $5 a month, $50 a year with our Everydayers Club. Go to lockedonpredators.supercast.com or check the link in the show notes to learn more. And hey, if you guys are just interested in checking it out, seeing what the Everydayer Club is all about, if you use code DEADLINE, you get a month of the Everydayer Club for free. So check that out. That is code DEADLINE. When we come back, we will be talking about CBJ and what they need to do, because it's a quick turnaround. That game's tonight for y'all. Technically, it's tonight for me because it's Tuesday as I'm recording this. I haven't gone to bed, though. But Columbus is the next destination. Beautiful tropical Columbus is the next destination for the Nashville Predators. We will see what the Predators need to do in order to come out with a victory after the break. So we got a back-to-back here, except it's home and away, and the Predators are going to face off against the Blue Jackets. And to the Predators' inconvenience, this is a Columbus team. As of late, in extending past the Olympic break, before the Olympic break, this is a team that's playing very well. They have won 8 of their last 10. As of Monday night, they spoiled a 4-goal comeback against the Rangers, or 3-goal comeback. I don't know what it was, but I'm sorry. Sorry, y'all. Oh my God. The Rangers scored 4 goals in the third period of this game. It was a 4-1. No, 4 goals. No, that was it was a 4-0 game in the third period of this game. And New York is just dreadful this year. Scored 4 goals in the third period, and then Columbus won the game 5-4 in overtime. And that always stinks. But I mean, Columbus is coming away with a big win. Ever since they came out of the Olympic break, I believe they dropped 2, and this is the first one they've won. At the same time, part of that's their goaltending. It looks like they're getting a lot of inconsistencies from Elvis Merzlikins. So I guess that's something the Predators could expose when going forward into this as well. But they're facing another team that's hungry. They're facing another team that's trying to get into the playoffs, and the team that will play with a lot of desperation going forward, as a lot of opponents this week will be. They're 3 points outside of the East Western Conference with 68 points. They need 71 to catch up to Boston. So this would be big in them moving up. And personally, if I'm the Columbus Blue Jackets on this run and seeing this Predators group come in, I'd be like, this team's very beatable. Yep, that's what it is. I would look at this as a member. If I was a member of the Columbus Blue Jackets, I'd be like, oh, this is a doable game. This is a beatable team because this team is so inconsistent. The last meeting, this is the second meeting this year between the two, was on October 9th. That was a 2-1 Predators win. First game of the season. Saros made 38 saves on 39 shots. Bunting scored the first Predators goal of the season. O'Reilly had the game-winning goal, but a lot has changed since that last meeting. And by a lot, I mean, we've all aged this year, and just the awful start, and then they got really hot, and then they've gotten to a lukewarm temperature now. But it's going to be another push from a team that, it's just the desperation of it. This is a Columbus team that wants to get in bad, but it's just, again, it's going to be another game of who wants it more. Is it going to be Columbus that wants it more? Is it going to be Nashville? It's going to be an interesting battle. And then fatigue is going to be an interesting part as well. Predators are still without Adam Wilsby. I believe Justin Barron was activated and put into the lineup for the Detroit game, so expect to see more of him. Yeah. But expect fatigue maybe to be a little bit of an issue. They get a little bit more time in between games with it being an earlier game, but there might be a little bit slow to the jump for the Predators. We'll see. It'll be interesting to watch. But that's a 6 p.m. start here locally, and that game is going to be in Columbus. And then before we wrap things up today, I want to talk about, some of the local stuff I did today. I got to cover the Nash Championship games today. Nash standing for Greater Nashville Area. Greater Nashville Area something. Scholastic Hockey. Yes, Greater Nashville Area Scholastic Hockey. And it's all the high school teams in the area. A lot of them are co-opt. And it was a lot of fun. I covered the Hein Cup today. And then I covered the Predators Cup. The Hein Cup is like the tier 2 level for varsity. Everybody plays each other for the season, and that's kind of split up into 2 divisions for the playoffs. They did the same thing when I was in high school too. And the Hein Cup, the co-op of Centennial and Independence beat the co-op of Mount Juliet, Wilson Central, and Lebanon 5-3. So I wanted to shout that out because it was a good game. It's the first year that Centennial and Independence have co-opted together. Centennial's been on and off as their own team, and then co-oping with Page and some other schools. Independence has been the same way as well, but they've come together for the first time. They had a lot of success this year in winning the Hein Cup. And then in the Predators bracket, it was between Nolensville and Montgomery Bell Academy. And Montgomery Bell Academy pulled out a 2-1 narrow victory to keep their season alive and force a decisive game 2 that will be held on Wednesday at 5:30 at Centennial Sportsplex. So if you guys want to check that out, that'll be a lot of fun too. But I wanted to shout out the local teams. A lot of fun. I repped my co-op high school team, BGHW, that I played for back in Illinois. So I'm always a big fan of co-ops just because, it can be awkward and I guess abnormal to team up with your rival to do something. But at the end of the day, co-ops are what makes these hockey teams work because these schools individually don't have enough players to field just one team, but having all of them come together, especially in the local sense, to build one team and be successful at it, it's a lot of fun and bring a lot of communities together. So it's great to see all the co-op teams out here in the Nashville area. But that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you for joining me for another late episode of the Locked On Predators podcast. I need to exit this out now because I'm struggling to pronounce everything because I'm getting tired. At Jack G. Williams on Twitter/X. All my writings at the Hockey News Nashville Predators. And hey, if you guys are just interested in Locked On Predators, LO_Predators on Twitter/X, Facebook and Instagram, Locked On Predators. And hey, if you guys are interested in the Everydayer Club, check that out. Members only Discord access, add free audio. Use code DEADLINE and get a month free of the Everydayer Club. That's a limited time opportunity, though. And then remember, just send in your mail to Preds Mailbag. That will be in the episode description. Thankful for y'all. Grateful for y'all. Love these conversations. I'm going to catch some Z's. You guys are starting your day. I hope you guys have a great Tuesday. Oh my gosh. It feels like this Monday's been so long, y'all. But have a great Tuesday. I'm looking forward to talking to you guys after the Columbus game for another episode of the Locked On Predators podcast.